So this one's for Passport for Good with founder and CEO Gayle Farman. Gayle, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I think you're doing a lot of great things for our educational system, and I'm looking forward to sharing your story with the world. So I just wanted to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
It's
Peter.
an honor.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be here.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So just to give some of our fans a little background on you and the company, starting with you, maybe we could talk about, where you come from, where you went to college, just to give the viewers a little background on Gayle.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Binghamton, New York,
Okay.
upstate New York in the Southern Tier, and I've spent most of my adult life in the Albany area, Capital Region, and I have a background in public policy, a degree from UAlbany, and a master's in public administration after that, and I have a extensive background in nonprofit leadership, resource development, as well as grant development. And I worked for a number of different health and human services foundations, leading large-scale grant-funded projects, and that's what I did primarily prior to forming Passport for Good.
And what made you, if you don't mind me asking, what made you think of Passport for Good? Did that background have something to do with it?
Well, I always really enjoyed solving problems, and I think, the grant world really prepared me very well for that. We solved a lot of problems. We were involved in continuous quality improvement
what type
in
of grants?
healthcare.
I don't mean to.
Yeah, sure. So I worked in developmental disabilities, as well as long-term care, home care, addiction recovery.
Oh, good for you.
And so in all of those fields, we were able to launch sort of large-scale quality improvement grants, as well as workforce development grants. So I really got a sense of, how to grow a workforce, how to work on career ladder programs for different levels of the professional workforce in health and human services. Yeah. So in many ways, Passport for Good is sort of a culmination of my life's work, because also in the community, I was always a lifelong advocate for people. I have two twin daughters, one of whom has Down syndrome. And so I was always an advocate, even prior to her coming into our world. And it was always just sort of something that I wanted to do, is make sure that I gave back to community, and that I raised kind and caring children of my own that gave back to community. And so it's sort of like all things coming together with Passport for Good.
And if I'm not mistaken, did you speaking with one of your daughters actually give you the idea for Passport for Good? Did I read that?
Well, it's close. Really what was happening was my daughters were both getting ready for college and career, their future after high school. And both of my daughters were very involved in the community, and had certain special community service projects that they were involved with, but also had done internships and work experience, and they were gaining such great skills in addition to developing a real empathy and compassion for problems to solve in the community. So I noticed that there was no real way to capture all the non-academic experience that my daughters were getting. Right, which is the hands-on, the whole student, and really their character and the essence of, who they are as people. And so I started to think about, why were we encouraging students to do all of this good and with no way to highlight it, no way to really give the students a way to chronicle their journey for college and career and their future, right? And then I just really started talking to school administrators and asking them, do you know what your students are really involved with outside of the classroom and also outside of school? They had a real sense of how many kids were involved in the extracurricular clubs and activities, but they didn't have any real data around that. They knew that kids sometimes didn't have the opportunities to do traditional community service because they had to do things for their families or, at home home, take care of younger siblings. So there was a whole array of activity that was going on in the community, but also at school, and no real way to get their arms around it, no real way to know which students were engaged and which students were sort of not being noticed. So when I talked to the school administrators, we realized that there was a much bigger problem to solve, and that schools really didn't have this very, very highly desired student engagement data. So we thought we could try to tackle a problem on both sides. And we've really been doing that for the past 4 years and learning how to do that since I founded Passport for Good.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, what is the mission statement for Passport for Good? Like when someone asks you in an elevator, what's the elevator pitch for Passport for Good? What is it?
Yeah. So we provide a simple way for students to chronicle their journey for everything they do outside the classroom, and provide a verified non-academic transcript for students while providing student engagement data for schools to help promote and encourage and celebrate what students do outside the classroom.
Is there specific verticals that you're targeting right now for Passport for Good?
Yes. So we have developed a platform which we've tested over a number of years, and we're really starting in the K through 12 public education market, although we are working in some private schools as well. And we felt that this was a real natural place for us to start because of our mission, and because frankly there's a huge need to solve this problem.
And I really feel like that's where school is going, more hands-on. What are these kids doing outside of the classroom? What really differentiates these kids from another student who's applying for maybe the same job or for the same college? I mean, it's a competition, but what makes him or her better? So as a student, I want to go out there and do as many things as I can to show that I'm really putting in the work to go to the school that I want to or get the job that I want to, and that I had the hands-on experience to do it. Did I hit that? Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think, the key is to really get students involved in a way that they're interested in being involved, right? And, when they're going through, primary and secondary school, it's their opportunity to sample things and really, take a critical look at who they are and what they're interested in. So we really want to encourage them to have those connections, and those in-school connections are really closely correlated to how they do academically and academic success. There's a lot of studies that show that there's a very strong correlation between participation in extracurricular activities and academic success.
Oh, really?
Yes, and there's a very strong correlation too for all of the things that students learn when they volunteer or when they're doing a work-based learning experience. So it helps them with their self-efficacy, it helps them gain compassion, it helps them look at the greater problems that they can solve and their role in it. And it also helps with attendance, feelings of connectedness with their school community, and also a sense, just a general sense of belonging. And that's something that's really, really important for overall student success.
Of course.
So these are all great things.
That's awesome. What schools are you currently working with now? Or school districts?
Yeah, so we have districts spanning from the Capital Region to Long Island to the Southern Tier, Western New York area, but we're working with a number of schools in the Capital Region, including Albany City School District, Schenectady City Schools, Watervliet, Cohoes, Coxsackie, Athens, South Colony, Burnt Hills, Ballston Lake, and then some bigger schools districts on Long Island, Mineola School District, Arkport in the Western New York area. So we've really got quite a large and growing base of districts that we're working with, all different sizes and all different student bodies.
That just made me think of something. So if a student from Albany High School does something that is not affiliated with the school, but qualifies for something that Passport for Good will consider an extracurricular activity, how is that verified?
Great question. So we have a whole verifying system within the application. Students can use Passport for Good either on their mobile phone, or they can use it on the web, or on a Chromebook at school. And they can get verified hours a couple of different ways. If they're doing something, as you mentioned, outside of school, they might be going to a local nonprofit organization.
Exactly.
And so what they would do is enter their hours that they did, and an email would go to the supervisor in that nonprofit, and it's a totally safe and secure, encrypted platform that really only goes to that supervisor and is very, very mindful of student privacy and their data. But there's also a number of other ways that hours can get approved. The supervisor can do it seamlessly on the app, or they can do it with a QR code.
Okay.
So there's a number of ways that the technology works. Also, a student can get hours approved by their supervisor in school as well. So kind of multi-directional.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think you mentioned something that's key is student privacy, and I'll let you talk about it. Didn't you just qualified? Is it I Save?
I Keep Safe.
I Keep Safe, and if you maybe you want to talk about that, because that's big.
So this is one of our objectives for the company, that we were going to enter the K through 12 public school market, and it's a very highly regulated market with lots of regulations
of course, for kids.
Laws pertaining to student data privacy, including, New York State Ed Law 2D, which is still getting approved, as well as the federal laws. They're called FERPA and COPA.
Okay.
And so any student using a platform under age 18, their data needs to be kept very highly private and secure.
Course.
And so we spent the last year really doing the foundational work, very hard work, to make sure that our platform met all those standards. And so we contracted with I Keep Safe, which is an FTC approved safe harbor company.
Oh, you contracted with them.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they are an independent entity that reviews our platform, our policies, our data retention and security policies, and the platform itself.
And who creates all of that to make sure it's safe and secure? Is it your team?
Our team.
Oh,
so
good for them.
Yeah,
you got a great
we
team.
have a great development team that worked very hard on this, as well as a compliance officer that worked on all of the policies.
In-house compliance officer?
And yes, in-house compliance officer. Part-time.
My brother's a
part-time
compliance
role.
officer. Maybe I got to get him in here with you.
Yeah, so it's really important, and it actually makes the school districts much more confident in using our platform without reservation. So
yeah, of course, if you have the validation piece and the data is secure, I mean, those are two major components that they want to make sure that their students' data is being safe. Yeah, so that's amazing. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about some of the partners that you have on board, some of your teammates. That have helped you grow the company, or?
Sure. I mean, it's really been, one of my, I guess, real important values that I've carried with me throughout all of my career is the value that I place on partnerships. And that's really how I've been able to be successful in the grant world, and I've sort of translated that over to the business world. And we not only have a wonderful group of local investors who have really been behind Passport for Good, and that has really helped us. We raised an initial seed round of over $500,000, which then allowed us to hire, a first-rate development team and, some salespeople. And, we've really started to grow with our expertise that we have in-house. To help scale the company. But also our other partners include, the trade associations that are part of the New York State education world. And that was one of our go-to-market strategies, is to partner with the New York State Superintendent's Council, as well as New York State School Boards, School Administrators Association, the Parent Teacher Association of New York State.
And how did you get in contact with all these different groups?
Well,
and
I basically reached out. And I said, this is what we're doing. From everything we know, there's nothing quite like this in the K through 12 education market. And they welcomed us with open arms because, again, there is no similar type of company in the market right now. now that is also BOCES approved.
Yep.
So, the BOCES is another major partner of ours.
Of course.
And, with 32 BOCES across New York State and 12 of the regional information centers, we have another strong base of partnership across New York State. And what that means is that we had to apply to be an approved vendor for state education through the BOCES network. And
is that an RFP process type?
It is. It is. You have to apply to be a vendor, and they vet you. And we got approved about 18 months ago on a statewide contract. And so what that means is that the schools can buy Passport for Good through a statewide BOCES contract. And we, can get our subscription price, but the schools get reimbursed from state aid for using our service.
Great.
So that's a real benefit to getting into the market.
And one thing that I wanted to talk about too, you mentioned that you raised over $500,000. Maybe give us one piece of advice of what it's like trying to raise funding, and maybe an obstacle that you'll go through when you're trying to raise that type of funding.
Sure. Well, one of the things that any investor looks for is they look at the founder and they look at the track record of the founder. And for me, this was my very first business venture. And so, I had to, make the case that I had done, my homework in terms of the business model, the business plan. And the history behind that is before I went out to the investors, I spent over 2 years doing customer discovery and really following the methodology of starting a company. So I had also no tech background, so it was really like an against all odds kind of a situation. And so I went to, again, look for a good partner. And so what I did was I went to RPI, knowing that they had the best software developers in the area. We're growing really strong developers using the most current technology. But they also had a business incubator at the time. And I walked into their incubator and I said, I'm a community entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur at the time. And I said, do I have enough data here to prove my concept, to take this to the next level, to really turn an idea into a business, and can you help me? And so I really, before I even raised the seed round, I worked with RPI for about a year and bootstrapped myself and built a prototype, which we tested. Yeah, so, it's really about making sure you follow that process. And it can be a very, very painful process.
So did
follow.
You have the idea for 2 years before you even decided to
raise the money? Yes. So I had done hundreds of customer discovery interviews with the users, but also the customers who were the school district. And, I really had a lot of data to bear out, the model and what we were doing with the, applying for the BOCES contract as a way to go to market. And so, having all those things really does help when approaching investors. But, they're still taking a risk on you, and especially in the early days. And so I do, operate on the principle of gratitude, and really am very, very thankful to the early investors who really believed in us and believed that there was a need for what we were doing, and also really understanding that we were going to be a data company.
Yeah, I think it's
and that it wasn't just, we weren't just a little volunteer tracking app, that we were really looking to provide meaningful data.
Yeah, data is key, and we'll definitely get into that. But it is critical to find the right partners when you're starting a business. How did you learn? Did you have a mentor to kind of teach you, how much equity should I give away? Because I'm lucky where I have Dan that would say, Pete, you need to be giving this much away and this much away, and this is who you should be talking to, and this is who you should trust. Yeah. Did you have someone, or did you do all that yourself?
No, I would say I really did have a great mentor, and I would say that mentor was Esther Vargas at RPI.
Okay.
And she was the one that opened the door the day I knocked, and she has been running incubators all over the country before coming to RPI.
Oh.
So she ran a whole Reveal program at RPI, which was really almost like a boot camp for entrepreneurs. And she really put me through the paces of, the the business model canvas and the intellectual property and how to raise money and, how to retain your equity as a founder. And
that's such a strong asset for you to have, that because even me, I got to be honest, I don't know that type of stuff. So in fact that you've done all that research and you know all that business, that just shows how strong of a founder and CEO you are.
Well, it's been a very steep learning curve, I must say, but I've been very grateful again, for the guidance that I had in the early days, and I also, just reached out to other entrepreneurs, and that they were a terrific source of guidance for me, and many of my investors, are those entrepreneurs, Steve Gonick and Dan Nolan, and
all good people.
Others who have really, really helped me to be a guide through this process.
So before we get into maybe the data pieces, are you going to? Because in college too, I remember I did a bunch of different community service, extracurricular activities. Granted, I was a food and restaurant major, and I do nothing to do with that right now, but I never tracked any of that. I don't know where that information is. And especially now, as a student, in the competitive marketplace, where is that information? So are you targeting schools, colleges as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
So the most important thing that we're sharing with everyone now is the why. Why is this so important for students? And, schools want to do what's good for students. And again, going back to the data, there's enormous data to support the linkage between students, what they do in terms of their extracurricular activities, and their success academically. So the data is there from a number of key studies that continue to be done, but also there have been messages in the public eye, right? So there was a report from Harvard in 2016 called Turning the Tide of College Admissions. And that report was all about the admissions officers talking to each other and saying, okay, we need to value meaningful service to community and reduce the academic pressure on our kids today, and really value what kids do every day and make it count. And they really looked at it through an equity lens, too. Again, going back to what students do outside of school that maybe doesn't allow them to take advantage of traditional extracurricular activities in school because they have obligations in the home.
Do you think that, even through college or through high school, if I'm in college and I do an X amount of extracurricular activities and applied learning initiatives, will you be able to use that data to determine what kind of job they got outside of college and how successful they were at their job in college?
Well, that's a great question. The data that we're providing now is for the first time giving schools and students real-time data about what they're doing. And, it's not just about getting ready for college junior year and having to go back and reflect, well, what did I do in middle school? And what did I do for my scouts? And what did I do for my faith-based organization? And what did I do for work-based experience? It's actually not just, a one snapshot in time, but it's ongoing. So it actually allows students to reflect on what they're doing and what they're interested in, and it gives the guidance departments a lot more information in current time about what the students are engaged with. And so it actually prompts a lot more conversation with the students about, wow, it seems like you're really on fire when you go help this nonprofit develop a website. It might not be what we instantly think of when we think of students doing community service. But, I think there's so much information that can be gleaned from all of these non-academic measures that can really help guide a student on their pathway, whatever their path is.
Find their passion.
Yeah, find their passion, exactly. And, what are you really interested in? And how can you take your passions and interests and the skills that you're already developing? Kids are doing incredible things these days. And so we want to nurture that. We want to, really hone in on what gets them excited about learning.
And don't you see Passport for Good actually opening up more opportunities for more, I keep calling them applied learning initiatives, but more opportunities to do things outside of school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the work-based learning part of it is huge. We're capturing hours in 3 different areas. So we're capturing community service.
Yep.
We're capturing participation. That can be anything in clubs or activities or even in a school assembly. And then we're capturing the whole career development area.
Yes.
So the career development area is expansive, and that can be anything from a student who develops, a relationship in the community with a business and does their own internship, or it can be a work-based learning experience called career and technical education, which is a huge area for student advancement and growth, where they're really gaining skills. And so the evidence is there as well that the students that are involved in career and technical education in school have a much greater attendance rate in school. They have a much greater likelihood of graduation, and they have a much greater likelihood of going on for post-secondary education. Yeah. So all of these things contribute to student success.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing because, I feel like if I had the opportunity to go out there and work with different companies, and I feel like a lot of different companies will want to be involved with Passport for Good because, one, they'll have access to students, but from the students' end, you'll be able to figure out what really is what you're good at and, how to advance in that, I guess.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Exactly. I mean, one of the really neat things is the other partnerships from the community that are opening up their doors to us, which is another tremendous opportunity for all of us to do more together in the community. So we've got organizations like Junior Achievement that are in the schools that are really working hard to give them exposure to entrepreneurship in an early phase. And so they're doing a lot of job shadows and placing students in the community with a lot of our local corporations. And so there's no place right now for that data to live, and that experience that the students are gaining, there's no place for that to live in the student record anywhere. So it's super exciting for us to be working with organizations like Junior Achievement and the ADL's No Place for Hate, and pulling all of this information together for the students so that they can again showcase their story and really tell the journey that they're on. So
I don't know if I'm digging too deep here, but is there anything else like that you're going to be using the data for that will be beneficial to students or your users in the future that maybe you haven't shared?
Actually, so something that we're really excited about is we are developing what's called APIs, which are, as you probably know, integrations between our software and other software. And again, we always think we can do better and do more with partners. And so what the school superintendents have really asked for is they want to use this new engagement data to really have measures with confidence about how many of their students are actually engaged in something in school. So that's for starters what school districts are looking for. And they want to be able to reach out to those students that are not engaged and really say, have a trusted adult reach out to them and say, how can we, make you part of a group and, interested? What are you interested in?
Because now there's more options with what you're doing.
Exactly. And we're putting it all in one place for the student. So the families will eventually be able to access that too and help students, to find the opportunities where they can get engaged. But on the data side of things, we have student information systems that are part of the school that capture all of the academic data. And so what we want to be able to do is give, again, for the whole student, give that integration to the school between what we're capturing and what the student information system is capturing for the academic pieces so that they can really make that correlation between what students are doing outside the classroom and their academic indicators for success. So that sounds like a really big goal, and it is a big goal, but we're already getting there.
Oh, yeah, no.
So it's super, super exciting for us.
So one question I wanted to ask is, as a female entrepreneur, actually you're the first female woman that we've interviewed on this show, and we're so lucky to have you as our first.
I'm so honored.
What was your biggest struggle, would you say, or biggest obstacle? Being a female entrepreneur and trying to start this business?
That's a really great question. I think that I wouldn't say that my obstacles have been gender-based at this point.
That's a good thing.
Which is really good. I think that, I do want to take advantage of everything that women founders can have in terms of being a woman-owned company and making sure that we make that known and make our services available in the context of the minority and women-owned business infrastructure that exists, so that our customers who apply for grants and need to meet certain goals related to using vendors or contractors that are minority or women-owned businesses can use us and help them achieve their goals. As far as being a woman founder, I think I've really been treated so well and welcomed with open arms by men and women. I think it's really exciting to see that so many venture capital firms are really aiming their dollars more toward women founders than ever before. We still have a very low percentage, of course, of venture money coming into women-founded companies, but I think the awareness is being raised, and I think the investors that we've met with are really evaluating us on our merits, and so it's just been positive.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And what would you say are the next steps for growth for Passport for Good?
Yeah, so next steps for growth are really surprisingly within our own vertical of the education market.
Yeah.
We're only just scratching the surface. I think one of our strengths has been our focus. It's very easy to get off on a shiny new thing, a shiny new vertical that you can serve.
Which can be detrimental.
One of the reasons why I founded Passport for Good was because of all the verticals that we could potentially enter.
Oh yeah, I see them all.
There are many, many. And we've been approached by many other verticals, corporations and criminal justice and others. But I think for right now, our focus on education is really allowing us to expand into a variety of different data sets for different audiences within education. And we are only just beginning, and we, of course, want to expand nationally.
Yes.
So that's plenty of work ahead right now for us. But, we certainly want to grow fast, but we want to grow responsibly as well. So,
and that's focus is key. Just seeing a lot of different businesses that I've helped try to grow and grow. I think where they kind of fall off the bandwagon is when they don't have a specific plan to move forward and a focus on that plan.
Exactly.
So I think it's great what you're doing.
And timing to market is a huge thing.
Oh, timing's everything.
It's a huge thing, right? And so we've been very fortunate to sort of see the direction that things are going with the balance of academic and non-academic indicators for success for students. And so the really exciting thing for us is that we really have the wind at our backs. The state education department is actively working now on the next generation graduation requirements. They're working on civic readiness and a seal of civic readiness for graduation. And there's so many other things that they're working on. School districts have goals around student engagement and community engagement, and they just have never really had an easy way to measure this.
It's like you can help everyone, and not to cut you, the company, the school, the student. You're bringing value to everyone.
It's a joy. It is a joy to feel that, and we just really want to be a good partner to our districts and our students, and we are on the way. So it's very exciting.
I agree. And if you could say one thing, before someone becomes an entrepreneur, what would you say they should think about before they make that jump?
Well, I would say that, to make sure that they have a lot of perseverance, because that's what's going to, really keep your head in it. And the times when you feel like you're struggling, or, you know, are we really going to make it, or, you know, is everyone just going to tell us that this is up? You know, you had your time, but it's not going to make it. You know, if you have those like periods of self-doubt, you just have to really persevere through those times, and you know, make sure that you have a lot of family support. I could not have done any of this if my husband and my family were not behind this, because of all of the extraordinary number of hours
how many hours
that this takes.
Would you say you work?
Well, we have a running joke amongst our team that it's 8 days a week, in the famous line in the Beatles song. You know, so it's
You're
an eight days a week, and you know, but when you're passionate, you really can take that passion forward with what you're doing, and if you are solving a problem, you're going to just keep going. You know, you just keep going.
It's so great, because a lot of different entrepreneurs, when they try to start a few businesses, you know, knock on wood, I'm not saying this, but you know, a lot of people fail their first few times. It just seems like you have the experience, you have the team, you have the idea, you're bringing so much value. It just seems like this is going to be a home run, and I see the verticals that Passport for Good is going to hit on, and the opportunities that are there. And
well,
I think you're going to do a great job.
You know, we're really getting, you know, past that point of, you know, falling down the crevasse of, you know, the valley of death, as they talk about in the startup world. We're well past that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it
so, you know, it's hard to believe that we're getting there, but you know, we are really getting there now, and it's just, you know, a super exciting time for the company. We've recruited a lot of top talent, and we'll continue to be able to recruit a lot of top talent. We're part of Startup New York, which is that economic development program, and that really allows us to, you know, drive the engine a little bit harder, and be attractive to teammates with a lot of talent, and we're growing, and in the way that we should, and you know, they all want to be part of something positive. I think that's also, you know, really what this is all about, is to be part of something positive, and to, you know, really share the positive
and make a real impact on people.
Exactly.
So I guess to wrap it up, it's been a great interview. What would you say is the best piece of advice that you've ever received, or that you've received, that has gotten you to where you are today?
Well, I guess I'd have to say that if I pointed to one thing, it would probably be the advice of my dad. He's a former school superintendent. And so now it's really interesting that I'm in this market, and you know, selling to some folks some of whom are even still, you know, old colleagues of his. Which is really nice. But he gave me a really great understanding of this market. And I think his best piece of advice was, you know, go get a COSER, which what a COSER means is it's a co-services agreement under BOCES, and, you know, make partners with the BOCES. And, you know, that's going to be a great way for you to get your story told and your product in front of everybody, and to really have that BOCES as your partner, because they help service the school districts as part of our partnership contract with BOCES, and that has been absolutely right, you know, in terms of our approach to get to market. So, and all the other good pieces of fatherly advice that I get from him too. So,
well, Gayle, it's been great talking with you. It's been great getting to know you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I look forward to continue seeing your business grow.
Thank you.
It will, and
Thank
I'll
you for all your
keeping
support.
an eye on you and keep reaching out to you. And I wish you nothing but the best. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great chatting.
Thank you.